Hey everybody, welcome back. In the continuation of our series, Developing a Proper Worldview, where we're continuing to, in a step-by-step fashion, lay the groundwork for seeing this world, this current state of affairs, the current times that we're in, through a biblical lens, through the correct biblical understanding, as far as I see it. And like we've mentioned several times, because I'm assuming if you're watching this one that you've watched the previous ones. I don't think it would make any sense to jump into it in the middle of the series. So if you are just happen to be catching this out of the blue, I would highly recommend that you go back and watch the other parts first and watch them in numerical order. Just to follow the flow of thought, because each video builds upon the last one, and that's how a correct worldview should be built as well, where each idea should be built upon the previous one, like you're building from the foundation up, and so we've laid the groundwork of the gospel and a firm faith in Jesus Christ as our God and Savior, our triune God, our triune Savior, and you must be born again. There's only two kingdoms. There's the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. So no matter how far into the conspiracy you go, no matter how much you think you're fighting against the darkness, if you don't belong to Jesus Christ, you're part of the other team. You're on the losing side. So you must get right with Jesus Christ. You must be born again. And then once you have that, we can continue to build from there. We're going to get into a lot of things down the road, a lot of political things, a lot of doctrinal things. But right now, we're attacking the foundation of the devil's kingdom, this theory of evolution that undergirds pretty much all of the false systems, that it discredits God as creator, and once you do that, you open the floodgates for all sorts of deception. So we're just taking that step by step. We're going through the Dr. Kent Hovind series. It's a 7-part creation series. Very informative, very good, very easy to follow. I've also recommended 2 books, The Collapse of Evolution by Scott Hughes and The Long War Against God by Dr. Henry Morris. I've also recommended 3 websites, Answers in Genesis, AIG.org, the Creation Research Institution, CRI.org, and drdino.com, which I don't know if that's still ran by Kent Hovind or not, but if not, you can certainly check that out and find good scientific articles, regardless of who's running it. But so those are our resources. Right now, we're on this 3rd part. I believe we're looking at dinosaurs in the Bible, showing how the evidence points to dinosaurs existing with man, not prior to man. We have things such as cave drawings. We have art depicting, whether it's sketches or drawings on like blankets and vases and excuse me, other such things. Pardon me. And also dinosaur and human footprints coexisting. Dinosaur legends all throughout history, prior to the 1800s when dinosaurs were just known as dragons. We have all sorts of evidence of dinosaurs and man coexisting, which completely eliminates the old Earth, old universe evolutionary theory. Dinosaurs were not here millions of years before man. They were here with man. And so that evidence is crystal clear. It's overwhelming evidence. It can't be refuted. And so we're looking at that. We're in the midst of this. We looked at the first 45 minutes last time, and so that's where we're going to pick up this time. So I appreciate you guys watching with me, and without further ado, let's jump into it.
The octopus. That's not the biggest one. A whale was killed near Seattle. Inside the whale's stomach was one arm to an octopus. All around the whale's body were 18-inch scars, circular scars, where something, either a giant octopus or squid, tried to drown the whale. See, whales love to eat octopus or squid, either one. And squid and octopus never stop growing. Now, if you're an animal that never stops growing, someday you won't have any more enemies. By the way, if you ever see a piece of puked up octopus floating around in the ocean, be sure to grab it. It's worth a fortune. Does anybody know what they make out of puked up octopus? Perfume. That is correct. That explains a few things, doesn't it, fellas? Hey, dear. You smell like a puked up octopus. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you can sleep on the couch for a month too, honey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are some awfully big squids out there. The Navy research vessel saw a squid wrestling with a giant whale one time in 1966. Giant squid. This one's in the Peabody Museum. Huge squid model over my head there. They said this one washed up on the beach in New Zealand. It was a baby giant squid. Full grown, it would have been 150 feet long. Some people say, now hold it, Mr. Holman. If dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible, and if they're mentioned all through history as living with man, are they mentioned in the Bible? I said, oh yeah, they're in there. I said, I didn't see them in there. Well, you won't see the word dinosaur because that word was made up in 1841. King James was translated in 1611. Figure it out. They couldn't use that word. It didn't exist yet. But dinosaurs are in there. If you read the book of Job, Job has 42 chapters. In the first 2 chapters, it tells us Job was a perfect man. He feared God and hated evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he had thousands of sheep and camels and oxen and asses. The guy was rich. And one day the messenger came and said, Job, I got some bad news. The oxen and asses got stolen and your servants were killed. Oh, and Job, by the way, the sheep all burned up. Thousands and thousands of sheep, all burned. Probably lightning or something, who knows. And Job, your camels got stolen. And by the way, Job, all 10 of your kids died. Job's having a bad day. Lost all of his animals. It's called the stock market crash. All 10 of his kids died. And Job said, the Lord gave, the Lord took away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. What kind of guy is this anyway? Everybody else would get mad at God, right? Job lost it all. Said, okay, God, it was yours to begin with. Thanks for letting me use it for a while. Then the devil gave him boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. And if that wasn't bad enough, his wife turned against him. And Job said, hey, you foolish woman, shall we not receive good at the hand of God and not evil? Job didn't sin with his lips in all of this. But then his 4 friends came to torment him. To comfort him, One of those guys was the shortest man mentioned in the Bible. Bildad the Shuhite. Pretty short, folks, okay? These 4 guys came and they talked to Job for 35 chapters. Most of the book of Job is these guys telling Job why everything went wrong. They had to be Baptists the way I got it figured. That's what I am. They said, Job, everything's going wrong, huh? Oh, we know why. You sinned. Now listen, folks. If something bad happens to somebody, you don't know why it happened. You should love them, pray for them, encourage them, and shut up. Don't go to the hospital when they get their gallstones taken out and say, hey, brother, these aren't gallstones. These are tithes and offerings. God's getting them out of you one way or another. Don't do that, okay? Let God take care of why everything's going on. He can handle that just fine. He doesn't need your help at all. So Job is sitting there scraping the pus out of the boil, sitting in the dust by the graves of his 10 kids, wondering, what's going on? He said, I wish the Almighty would answer me. Lord, why is this happening to me? And folks, you don't have to live on planet Earth very long before you're going to be wondering why some things happen to you. If you haven't got there yet, you just keep living. It'll happen. Job didn't know about Romans 8:28. It was coming, though. God said, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are the called according to his purpose. Now, this verse does not say everything that happens is good. It says everything will work together for good. It's a big difference. I'll show you. Has anybody here ever been hungry? Suppose you come to my house, you say, Brother Hogan, I'm hungry. I'll say, man, come on in, have a seat. I'll give you a cup of flour. I got it. Lean back, open up. We're going to shove in a spoonful of salt. Now that'll help you. How about a spoonful of baking soda? Oh, wow, that stuff tastes good. You're probably getting kind of dry by now, so lean back. We're going to pour down a half a cup of Crisco. Chase it down with a cup of buttermilk. You said that would taste terrible. How about if we mix them all together first and make biscuits? Hey, now you're talking. Did you know the individual ingredients for biscuits taste lousy? But they work together for biscuits, don't they?
It's a good analogy.
You know, God promised everything that happens to you will work together for good if you love God. Life is so simple. Keep your heart right with God.
And are called
That'd
according
be
to
hard
his
to do because
purposes.
the heart's deceitful and desperately wicked.
Those who aren't
But you just
called
keep your heart right. Everything that happens
don't
is
have that
good.
promise.
Finally, though, in chapter 38, the Lord answered Job out of a whirlwind. Boy, if a tornado starts talking to me, I'm going to pay attention. And the Lord said, "Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge?" Hey, by the way, many false cults take a lot of their doctrine from the book of Job. One of Job's friends said something like, the dead die and they don't know anything. Well, that's one of Job's friends saying that. It's true that they said that, but what they said was not true. Be real careful getting a doctrine from the book of Job. Read the verse and it's okay, that's interesting. Now, who said this? If it's one of Job's friends, it's true that they said it, but what they said may not be true. Just really be alert. Same thing in Ecclesiastes.
It's good wisdom because a lot of people will do that. They'll pull out. You shouldn't build doctrine on a historical narrative. Like, often you'll hear atheists or skeptics or whatever try to argue with you and say that, look at all these biblical men. They married multiple wives. David had a bunch of wives. Solomon had a bunch of wives. How could God approve that? Well, God never said that they could have multiple wives. The Bible's simply telling you what happened. It's giving you a historical account, saying these men took for themselves multiple wives, but God never commanded that. God never said go get multiple wives. That's not a doctrine. It's not a teaching of the scriptures. It's just a historical narrative. In the same way, like a modern day false teaching would be people say you have to speak in tongues, and by tongues they mean some sort of charismatic outburst, some sort of what sounds like gibberish. They would say you have to speak in tongues as an evidence of being baptized in the Spirit. And they would say, if you look in Acts chapter 2, it shows that these men were baptized in the Spirit. The Spirit came down upon them with tongues of fire, and they spoke in tongues. Well, the word tongues there just means languages, and that's evidenced in that chapter because all the people from all the different nations heard them speaking in their own language. They didn't hear gibberish. They heard their own language. And then B, that's just, even if that did mean the outbursts of gibberish, that's a historical account. It's not a teaching. It's not saying you have to do this. It's saying here's what occurred. So you can't build a doctrine off of something that occurred. You can't say, well, this occurred, so therefore it always has to be this way. That would be like looking back in American history and saying, see, Americans once owned slaves, so slavery's okay. No. You can't look back at the historical account of what has occurred. Because in history there were slaves in America does not mean that slavery is okay. A teaching on it would be the amendment to the Constitution. What is it, the 16th Amendment? Where it forbids slavery. That's a specific teaching, a specific doctrine, the Constitution, saying you cannot own slaves. That's a doctrine, that's a teaching. Looking back and reading a historical book and saying, George Washington owned slaves, therefore slavery is okay. No. It's the same thing with the Bible. When you look back and you read a historical account, you can't then build a doctrine off of that. Whereas in other places, there are specific teachings from God, where the scripture, thus saith the Lord, or Paul or Peter or John laying out Christian behavior, Christian ethics, teaching the church how to live in a Christ-like manner. Those are teachings. Those we build, so that's not to say you can't get wisdom or get that you can't pull doctrine out of historical accounts, because some historical accounts, like for instance Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, he's teaching and it's being recorded. So yeah, that's historical, but it's also his teachings, and so we're pulling the teachings out of that. So you just have to, and that's just reading contextually, reading in the proper contextual style, and I think that's called a hermeneutic, how you study the scriptures, just paying attention to how it's written, what style of writing it is. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's the wisdom of man under the sun. It's not the wisdom of God above the sun. Okay? Just be real careful about getting your doctrine from those two books. Just take it very slow. God said, who's darkening counsel by words without knowledge? God said, gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Man, I read that 34 years ago as a brand new Christian, and I thought, what a dumb question. Where were you when I built the earth? How many of you were here when God built the earth? Now, kids, this is going to be complicated. Okay, so listen carefully. Since you were not here when God built the earth, that means that God is older than you are. How many can figure this out with no help? Okay? Did it ever occur to you that God is also smarter than you are? Did it ever occur to you that God is stronger than you are? Did it ever occur to you that God is richer than you are? You say, Brother Hovind, everybody's richer than I are. God certainly is. Try this one. Did it ever occur to you that nothing ever occurred to God? Things occur to me all the time. I say, wow, I never thought of that before. Did you know that never happens to God? He has already thought of everything. He even knows and understands the imaginations of your thoughts and mine. Yeah. This is a pretty cool verse. Not only does he know your thoughts, he knows the imaginations of the thoughts. That's a whole different level. You see, you can not only think about things, you can actually think about what you're thinking about. Think about that. The Bible says God knows your thoughts, and the Bible also says Jesus knows your thoughts. That's one of many verses that prove Jesus is God Almighty in the flesh. Not just a God, like Jehovah's Witnesses say. He is the God in the flesh. God knows your thoughts. And get this, he loves you anyway. Wow, what a nice guy. God asked Job a question, and Job did not answer. So God asked him another one. Declare, if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Question mark. Job doesn't answer. So God asked him another one. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Did you know scientists didn't even know there were springs in the sea until 1977? God asked Job this question. Probably Job was written shortly after the flood, right about in this time, when people are still living to be 400 years old. Because Job had 10 grown kids all die and lived long enough to see his fourth generation from the new batch of kids that he got. Probably lived right about in here. No mention of the law hadn't been given yet. Most people think Job was written probably the oldest book in the Bible, but not the first one in the Bible. God asked Job question after question. He said, where's the way where light dwelleth? That's a cool verse. Light doesn't stay in a place, it's in a way. But then it says, as for darkness, where's the place thereof? Hey, did you know darkness can't move?
Interesting.
We're the children of light, right? The Bible says the gates of hell.
Man, that's deep. There's a sermon wrapped up in that thought. Light is a way. Darkness is a place. Darkness can't move. Darkness is just an absence of light. It's very interesting. That's something to think about.
Not prevailing. The gates don't move. People say, "Oh, Satan's attacking us." No, we're not on the offense. It's our problem. Okay, we're letting him win. We're the children of light. We're supposed to be on the move, folks. Anyway, God said, "By what way is the light parted, which scattereth east wind upon the earth?" Now wait a minute. Does the light cause the wind? It sure does. Ask any weatherman. The sunlight causes the ground to warm up and the air to warm up, and it causes it to expand, the air, and the wind has come from the sunlight. God said that 4,000 years ago. God said, "Canst thou send lightnings?" Boy, it's a good thing I can't. How many of you can think of somebody that's lucky to be alive because you can't send the lightnings? I can think of several, yes, sir. God said, can you send the lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are? Now wait a minute. Is God telling Job electricity can be used to send a message? I believe he is, folks. That's how radio, TV, telephone, radar, microphones. Oh yeah. God said that 4,000 years ago. God asked Job question after question after question, 84 questions by my count. Job never answered one. See, these are the kind of questions that don't need an answer. The question is designed to change the person's attitude. These are the same kind of questions you dads have to ask your kids. Say I have 3 kids, one of each. Kids get to a certain age and they start to get kind of cocky and they think they should make the rules around the house. The kid comes in one day and says, hey Dad, listen, I believe I should be allowed to stay out till 4 in the morning with my friends. After all, I'm 10 now. Dad says, hold on just a minute, kid. You'd like to know why you can't stay out till 4 in the morning. Well, son, let me ask you a couple questions here. Who pays the electric bill around this house? Who's paid for the house? Who paid for that bed you slept on last night? Who paid for those clothes you're wearing, son? Who pays for the food you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat? Who paid for the hot water and soap you took a shower with about a month ago? Let's just get it straight right now, son. The Bible is very clear on this topic. He who payeth the bills maketh the rules. 2 Opinions chapter 4. You see, son, me, dad, you, kid. And if you're going to sleep under my roof and eat my food, you're going to do it my way. And when you want to do it your way, well then go get your own roof to sleep under and get your own food to eat, and you can do it your way. That's the golden rule, son. He that hath the gold maketh the rules. Who do you think you are, kid? Where were you when we got to this land and drove off to grizzly bears and walked uphill to school 40 miles in the snow, barefoot, both ways? I think God's asking Job these questions to change Job's attitude. We come to chapter 40. God said, behold now, behemoth. Now what on earth is a behemoth? Some reference Bibles say it could be the elephant hippopotamus. No, it cannot be either of those. I think behemoth is the long-necked dinosaur, probably the Brachiosaurus. Actually, there are 13 different long-necked dinosaurs. The Brachiosaur, the Cetosaur, the Mamenchosaur, the Seismosaur, the Supersaur, the Apatosaur, the Blondosaur. You just have to talk to her kind of slow, okay? You'd be amazed how much hate mail I get from just that statement. I say, look, I'm blonde, my sister's blonde, my mother's blonde, my daughter's blonde. Okay? I like blondes. And I like making fun of them too. Okay, so back off. If you don't like it, edit this part of the tape out. All right? He says, behold now, behemoth eats grass as an ox. Some people say, hey, elephants eat grass. And my Bible says elephant. A lot of animals eat grass, okay? Look at the next verse. His strength is in his loins, his force is in the navel of his belly. The biggest part on him is his belly. They say elephants have a big belly. Yep, you're right. Hippos have a big belly. Brachiosaurus has a big belly. He has a big belly. So does he. Yeah. Next verse says, he moveth his tail like a cedar. Wait a minute. His tail's like a cedar tree? Have you ever seen an elephant's tail? Not like a cedar tree. Have you ever seen a hippo tail? Not like a cedar tree. You know, before they put those comments at the bottom of the Bible, they really should be required to read the passage at least once. You know, before they comment on it. It's not an elephant hippo, hello. It's not one of those. Anyway, the Bible says, his bones are as strong.
I can't stand footnotes. You know, it's opinions of men passed along as if they're authority. I highly recommend that you don't have a Bible with footnotes. Pray through verses. Think things through on your own. Get the word from the word. You know, don't go to other people for the word. I think that's the difference between Adam and Eve and why Eve was deceived and Adam wasn't. God specifically told Adam, you shall not eat from that tree. He got his information directly from the word, from God. Whereas Eve got it substitutionary, you know, through Adam. Adam told her, hey, God said don't eat this. So if you're getting your information from man who's telling you this is what God says, it kind of loses some of its impact. It also allows for deception or innocent errors. You know, even the best teachers and the best preachers make mistakes. So you can't just rely upon them to tell you what God says. Same with the footnotes or the commentaries. You can't just trust John MacArthur or Henry Morris with their study Bible to tell you what things mean. That doesn't work. You need to wrestle that out. You need to think it through. You need to pray about it. You know, we all have the Holy Spirit if you're born again. Scriptures say that we have no need of a teacher because you have the teacher in you. And you have his word. He wrote the word. So just slowly, prayerfully, you know, read, meditate. When you come across hard things that don't make sense, pray about it. Study line upon line, you know, compare verse with verse. Get a Strong's Concordance. It'll tell you where that word appears everywhere in the Bible. And you can go through and look how God uses that word or how God uses that idea throughout the scriptures to get more depth. You can see, okay, when God says this, he usually means this. And you can pray it out and compare scripture with scripture and just think it through on your own. Because like I say, even the best teachers are going to get things wrong. And so if you're just believing what you read, you're probably going to fall into deception at some point.
Pieces of brass, his bones are like bars of iron. He had big bones. And they did. I've got one here on the table. This is a copy of a toe bone from a brachiosaur. Now kids, this is going to be complicated, so listen carefully. The reason he had such big toe bones is because he had big toes. And he had those big toes because he had a big foot. Matter of fact, their foot was big enough to take a bath in, the footprints, if you're a little kid. Pictures on the back of the book from Dinosaur Valley State Park, right here. Come by, take a look at that. They had that big foot because he had a big leg to hold up. His front leg is 20 feet tall.
That's crazy.
The biggest dinosaur found so far was found in Oklahoma, 60 feet to the top of the head. They say it'll take them 20 years to dig all the bones out of the ground because it is a government project. They say when it was alive, it might have weighed 100 tons. 100 tons is equal to 14 school buses put together. That means if he was to come by and step on you, you would be deeply impressed by him. You would be road pizza. By the way, speaking of government projects, I want to show you folks my invention that's going to make me the richest man on planet Earth. I'm going to save so much money for the highway department, construction crews, and utility companies, and the military. And all I want is 10% of the savings. I'll be the richest man on planet Earth. I have invented a shovel that will stand up by itself. You won't need to pay those guys to lean on it anymore. Mm-hmm. You just watch when you drive by a construction crew. You'll see what I'm talking about. Everyone can use one of these inventions. Next verse says, he's the chief of the ways of God. He's the chief. That's the Hebrew word for chief, the Rishah. He's the biggest animal God ever made. Well, that would not be the elephant hippopotamus. It'd be the Brachiosaurus. And you know what kind of fits the pattern for the way the devil works? Whenever God makes things, the devil tries to destroy them. God invented beautiful things. God invented music. God loves music. And Satan has come along with some ungodly music you shouldn't listen to. Somebody asked me one time, they said, Brother Holman, you know what you get if you play country music backwards? I said, no. They said, you get your hound dog, your wife, and your pickup, all back. Oh yeah, backmasking, I heard about that stuff. And God invented marriage and the family and sex. God made them male and female, and he understands it pretty good, and he put some rules down. Boys, don't touch the girls till you're married to them. Now, if you don't want to touch them, then stay away from me. Okay, I saw you crying out west, but God wants you to have a wonderful life. He said the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. These movie stars getting married again every 6 months don't have a clue what the precious life is all about. Now, kids, listen carefully. Here's what you got to do. It doesn't matter what your friends are doing. The Bible teaches you're to keep yourself pure and your wife or husband keep pure till you both walk down the aisle, and the preacher says, wilt thou, and you wilt, and then you stick with that one for the rest of your life. That's the precious life right there. God knows what he's talking about. The Bible says God created all the great creatures. God made the dinosaurs. And Satan said, you know, there has to be some way to use dinosaurs against God. But he couldn't fool Adam, not with dinosaurs. Imagine the devil walking up to Adam and saying, hey, Adam, did you know dinosaurs lived millions of years ago? Adam would say, are you dumb or what? There's one in the backyard eating off the cherry tree right now. The devil couldn't fool Noah. He fed him every day. But for the next 4,000 years, they became pretty rare. Many species went totally extinct. Gone. And then in 1809, they found the bones and put one together. And the devil was there that day. Said, wow, here we go, folks. My chance, finally, after 4,000 years. Satan said, you know, these critters have always lived with man. I know that, and God knows that, but these people don't know that. So the devil said, I think I'm going to tell everybody they lived millions of years ago. And if they believe it, it'll make them doubt the Bible. And boy, has it worked good. You know, for the last 200 years, kids have been going to kindergarten and getting a book like this. I can read about dinosaurs. Would anybody like to just take a wild guess at what the first sentence in the book says? Millions of years ago. Yeah, sure enough. So many books in our libraries teach this stuff. Millions of years ago. How many kids are being taught that in your town? At your expense? I go to museums all the time. Just makes my blood boil, seeing all these beautiful, incredible museums, fancy displays, loads of money, and the wrong message. Kids are being brainwashed. That's why we started our own. We need lots of creation museums around the country. Hundreds of them. People up here. Somebody start one. Next verse says, he lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. The word fens means the swamp. Well, the biggest swamp in the world is in the middle of Africa. Right there. Most Americans don't know how big Africa is. There's what America looks like next to Africa.
That's crazy.
That swamp is gigantic. Bigger than the whole state of, same size as the whole state of Illinois. Gigantic swamp. There have been reports of dinosaurs in that swamp in the last 200 years. There could be a few dinosaurs still alive. I don't think there's very many. I don't think they're very big ones, but I think there's some still alive, folks. We cover lots more on that in the next section. But basically, God made dinosaurs with Adam and Eve. They were big lizards before the flood. Noah took them on the ark. People began killing them. There are very, very few left today, but there might be a few still around. But don't let anybody tell you they lived millions of years ago. That is just plain baloney. We'll cover dinosaurs still alive in the next section after the break. Thank you. All right, in this section, we're going to talk about dinosaurs that may still be alive.
Man, I don't know why I'm so tired.
Now, I know how crazy that sounds to the average person who's been trained with the humanist line of, you know, dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. But some of these guys need to open their mind just a little bit. Maybe somebody drop an intelligent thought in there. I think from a Christian perspective, the world is very different than what our textbooks teach. I think dinosaurs always lived with people. They call them dragons. There could be some still alive. The Bible teaches before the flood came, there was a canopy of water overhead and water under the crust of the earth. Probably gave optimum conditions for people and animals to live a long time. Actually, they would have lived forever if they hadn't sinned. Dinosaurs were big lizards that lived with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They did not live millions of years ago. They were pre-flood. Many indications from history indicate that people have always known about dinosaurs. And yet the textbooks are saying dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. Somebody is clearly wrong. And I think I know who it is, and I enjoy showing them who they are. Dr. Seuss even says, millions of years ago, before you were born, millions of years ago. We've just been bombarded with this propaganda for so long, some people actually believe it. Millions of years ago. The Bible says Behemoth lives under the shady trees in the fens. The Old English word fens means the swamp. Behemoth lives in the swamp. Well, the largest swamp in the world is in Central Africa, right on the equator, called the Lagwala Swamp. 55,000 square miles. It is 80% unexplored. That swamp is bigger than any one of those yellow states. It's the same size.
That's crazy. Think about that. In today's society, there's still a spot in the world that's 80% unexplored. That's nuts. Like, in one sense, the world is small, like compared to the universe, but in another sense, it's just massive. I mean, I'm in a pretty big city, and it's just one dot on the globe. That's crazy. And like, so there's places that just people don't go. There's places like that are just unexplored. That's mind blowing.
As any of the three red states. That's a big swamp. Belgium took over this area back in 1885. They colonized the Congo, and it was called the Belgian Congo for many, many years. Then in 1960, the communists went in there and liberated them. You know, the communists liberate countries, don't you? They killed everybody and said, okay, you're free now. Well, today it's called the People's Republic of Congo. But back in the 1700s, even before Belgians went in there, some missionaries went into that swamp and reported there are dinosaurs still alive. In 1910, an article came out of the New York newspaper after folks had gone into the swamp, and they said, folks, there are dinosaurs still alive in that swamp. This article appeared in the Saturday Evening Post, 1948. There could be dinosaurs still alive. A game hunter, big game hunter, went in there. His name was Mr. Gobbler. He returned to Africa from a trip to Angola and announced to the newspaper that there was an animal of large dimensions, the description of which could only fit a dinosaur. The natives in the region called it Chippewa. That was their name for it. Could there be dinosaurs living in the last century? In 1980, a couple of scientists went in there to the Congo swamp. They said it's the most miserable swamp in the world. They said the mosquitoes landed on them at the rate of about 1,000 per hour. Just like dust, swarms of mosquitoes swarming around them. Constant battle with mosquitoes, poisonous snakes, poisonous spiders, every kind of critter you can imagine. Plus the pygmies over there are taught, if you ever see a white man, he's probably a spy. The communists go in there and tell them that to keep, everybody else out of the Congo. Well, Roy Mackel from the University of Chicago and a couple other guys went into that swamp, tromped around for a while. The natives kept talking about a couple of animals. One that interested them was the animal called Mahamba. When they showed them a picture of a crocodile, they said, yep, that's Mahamba, right there. And these scientists said, well, how big does Mahamba get? And they pasted off on the sandbar 50 feet.
That's crazy.
Said, right. Of course, now if you're a pygmy, 4'4", a 50-foot crocodile looks real big to you. But they claim there are 50-foot crocodiles in the swamp. I don't know. That's what the natives said. They live there. They also talked about an animal called Mokele Mbembe. Mokele Mbembe. When Dr. Mackel said, fellas, what is Mokele Mbembe? They drew a sketch on the ground of an apatosaurus or a cetosaurus, one like this right here. Dr. Mackel said, fellas, that's a dinosaur. They've been dead for 70 million years. And the natives said, we're sorry, we didn't know about that. We've never been to America to study evolution. All we know is we see them out in the swamp once in a while when we're fishing. Now, they're not very big, okay? They're about 20 feet nose to tail is what the natives will tell you. Most of their bodies about the size of a hippopotamus, just a long neck and a long tail. They live underwater. They're very rarely seen. They apparently are nocturnal, active at night. And so the chances of seeing one are close to zero. You can even live there for your whole lifetime and never see one. It's not like they're real common, okay? There's just a few left in this big swamp. I live in Florida. I've been there 15 years. You know there are panthers in Florida. I've only seen one in 15 years, and it was dead on the highway. It's possible for a lot of animals to avoid detection. Anybody knows that.
That's true. I used to think about that when I was lost, thinking about like Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Like, could there possibly be one? And I used to think like, if there's only a handful of them, and, I don't think it's some monster. Back then, I used to even think it could be like the North American ape, like just some big, rare gorilla that exists in the North American continent. But I used to think like, if there were only a few of them, and like he's saying, they're nocturnal, they could stay pretty hidden. Like, how often, I know there's badgers. Like, I'm in the Minnesota-Wisconsin area, and Wisconsin's called, the Badger State, Wisconsin Badgers. I would assume that means there's badgers somewhere in the woods around here, but I've never seen a badger. Michigan wolverine, I go up to the Upper Peninsula, I've never seen a wolverine. I've never seen, I suppose there's cougars every once in a while in the northern part of Minnesota. I've never seen a cougar. So like just think, and there's millions of those, or at least thousands and thousands, and you don't see any of those. So like he's pretty logical and straightforward here. He's not like the conspiratorial stuff, like the way you hear about, like, I think he's going to get into Loch Ness monster, and the way they've romanticized that, and like the National Enquirer with its stories, or unsolved mysteries, they make it seem like such a kooky, weird thing to believe that you're almost embarrassed to say that it's a possibility. But the way he explains it makes sense. If there's only a few of these things left, especially if they're water dwelling, because 97% of the planet's water and a lot of it's unexplored, and there's only a few of them, and they're nocturnal, and they're out in the middle of a jungle that's only 80% explored, or in Loch Ness with all them underground caves or whatever, or there's a Okoboji, I think is what it's called, in Canada, some lake where there's supposedly sightings. It's a reasonable theory. He's not saying it for a fact, and I wouldn't cling to this as an evidence to use against evolutionists. It's just an interesting theory. The main thing to use against evolutionists is the evidence that man and dinosaurs coexisted. The dinosaur legends, the cave drawings, the artifacts, things like that. That's where the real evidence is at. This is just something interesting to think about, and I don't doubt that it's true. Like, why would these jungle people, why would they make that up? Why would they lie about that? It doesn't make sense.
Studies animals at all. Well, Dr. Mackel went there, and the natives said, oh yeah, Mokele Mbembe's favorite food is malombo plant. If you find some of these plants along the side of the river, and you find there are no alligators or hippos, probably Mokele Mbembe lives there. Because he's so ferocious, even the hippos and alligators are afraid of him, or crocodiles. They drive them out of their part of the river. They found footprints of one of the animals. Dr. Mackel's phone number here, and he's got a California and a Chicago house. There he is. He said, look, I've been there. That's what the natives say. Missionary Eugene Thomas was there for 42 years. He's retired now, back in Ohio. There's his phone number. He said, yeah, I had met pygmies that knew about these creatures. He said, they live in the swamp. He said he met two pygmies that killed one and ate it back in 1959. There are just so many stories about Mokele Mbembe from that swamp region over there. Different countries around that region have different languages, of course, and they call it by different names, but they all describe this creature right here. Marcelina Agnagna saw one. He's a biologist from the Congo. He said it looked like that. Dr. Mark Miller went there, came back. He said, boy, the pygmies over there just nearly killed us. They got us, captured us. We thought they were going to kill us. Fascinating story from World Explorer magazine, wexclub.com, W-E-X for worldexplorerclub.com. They're right down here in Chicago. Is where their headquarters are, near Chicago. Some guys from Los Angeles went to the swamp and said, look, we saw one, but our cameras malfunctioned because of the high humidity. It ruined everything. It's not like you just drive in, take a picture, and drive home, okay? It's just not the same, right? It's a little tough conditions over there. They said the creature was brownish in color. The skin appeared slick and smooth. It had a long neck and a small head. Herman saw it. Kia saw it. That's his wife. And on several occasions, they heard it making a tremendous roar. Many other members of the expedition, and this includes government officials from the Congo, saw it and heard it. There's an article from the Boston newspaper about a group getting ready to go over and look for the half-god, half-beast, Mokele Mbembe creature. This is in 1999. There have been about 30 expeditions into that swamp looking for this critter right here. Many of those that come back say, man, all the natives over there know about it. It's like, it's not a big deal. There have been so many expeditions, 30-some that I know of, plus maybe more. The natives claim that they live in caves along the side of the rivers, and they're more active at night. Very difficult to spot these critters, and they stay underwater. So not only at night, but underwater at night, which makes it even tougher to see. Roy Mackel wrote a book about it. We sell the book. We're finally able to get some from the Netherlands. If you want to get his book, it's like $25, but about a living dinosaur. Now, Roy Mackel believes in evolution. After going over to the swamp, he came back. He went over there twice, spent $250,000. He came back and said, folks, there are some dinosaurs still alive. And then he said, it's amazing they survived for 70 million years. Oh, well, we're working on Roy about that one. It's not millions of years ago. William Gibbons from Canada has been over there 4 times now. He and I wrote this book together, Claws, Jaws, and Dinosaurs. William contacted me and said, Rehoven, I've been there 4 times. I said, William, I've been collecting stuff for 30 years on cryptozoology. Let's write a little book together. So he did for kind of junior high, lower high school age, about dinosaurs still alive. William went back to Cameroon, and he said, he had a guide named Pierre Sima. He said, we were the first white man to actually penetrate the forest and swamps bordering the Boumba River. Our informants, mostly all of them Baka pygmies, with the exception of one elderly Muslim Cameroonian, are perfectly familiar with all the known and unknown animals of the forest and swamps. They do not regard the Lakele Mbembe as being an unusual animal. They do fear the creature because of its ferocity in attacking hippos, elephants, and even crocodiles. The animal appears to be completely intolerant of any other large creature that shares the river, and controls large stretches of the river, particularly those areas where its food supply is present. I was on 100 Huntley Street, a program from Toronto, Canada, one time. I'm sitting there getting ready to go on the air, and there's another guy, a missionary, who's going to go on and talk for a few minutes about his mission work. And he was looking through Roy Mackall's book, and he saw that picture. He said, Brother Hovind, my wife and I were missionaries in Kenya, Africa, for 15 years. We saw one of those animals. He said, but the plates on the back were bigger. There have been about 5 reported sightings that I've been able to find in the last 100 years of people seeing what apparently are Stegosaurus-type creatures, plates on the back. In South America, there's a jungle called the Amazon jungle that is absolutely gigantic. There have been many reports of creatures in the Amazon that are pretty strange. For instance, in 1907, Colonel Fawcett from the British Army was sent down there to mark the border between a couple of countries. He was known as a meticulous recorder of facts, one of those no-nonsense kind of guys. He reported a creature that he believed to be a Diplodocus. The people down in that valley said, oh yeah, that's animals out there in the river. Don't bother them, they're not friendly. Colonel Fawcett's son drew a picture of the footprints that they saw. Appears to be a 3-toed dinosaur of some kind. In 1883, this
so
article
much in
came out
this
in
world
Scientific
we don't know
American,
about.
before they became very careful about filtering out anything that might support creation. Now they're very careful about filtering that stuff out. You know, if it might support creation, it'll never make the Scientific American paper. But this article said, the Brazilian minister at La Paz, Bolivia, had remitted to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Rio.
It's like we can't really trust anything we're told about anything. Like we don't know. Information is filtered. You know, it's you know that old theory. History is written by the winners, or if you have ever read Orwell's 1984, like history's erased or rewritten. Like all we're fed is information from certain sources. We're told this is what's true. Like you wouldn't hear about this stuff if it wasn't for these ministries like this. There's so much out there that we're unaware of. It's crazy.
Photographs of drawings of an extraordinary saurian dinosaur killed on the Beni, that's the name of the river, after receiving 36 balls. They shot it 36 times. By order of the president of Bolivia, the dried body, which had been preserved in Asuncion, was sent to La Paz. It was 12 meters long, 39 feet, with snout to point of the tail. Describes the whole thing in Scientific American. The neck is long, the belly large, and almost dragging the ground. Professor Gilvetti, who examined the beast, thinks it is not a monster, but a member of a rare or almost lost species, as the Indians in some parts of Bolivia use small earthen vases of identical shape and probably copied from nature. Here's a picture of a giant snake that actually swallowed a human. There's some big snakes down there, folks.
That's
Got it open,
crazy.
there's a guy inside of it.
Ugh.
Colonel Fawcett said he shot and killed a 62-foot anaconda snake.
Nah. I don't
The natives that were with him said,
don't go to
Colonel,
places
you
like
should
that."
see the big ones. This ain't a big one. Officials from the Brazil-Colombia Boundary Commission in 1933 killed a 98-foot snake with 2-foot diameter. They killed it with a machine gun. It weighed 2 tons. 4 men were unable to lift its head.
That's crazy.
The cook from a hotel in the Amazon jungle said he saw a 100-foot snake the military hunted down and killed because it ate 2 of their soldiers. The snake's head was 5 feet long.
Nah, man.
Reuters news service reported this creature back a
Got
few
to
years
kill
ago. A
them.
130-foot long serpent, the diameter about 15 feet, crashed through the jungle. The soccer team was terrified and saw it go by. 1948, this picture was taken, showing a giant snake carcass floating down the river. The people said it might have been 150 feet long. Nobody poked it to see if it was alive.
Why would you live
We'll
somewhere
just
like
let
that?
that one go on by.
It's, if I'm in a
See,
place where
many
there's stuff
Americans
like
cannot
that,
comprehend how big the Amazon River
it's
is.
time to pack up and
I had
go.
one of my former students who was a missionary down there for a while, right there in central Brazil. He said, Brother Hovind, where we live, the Amazon is only 9 miles wide. Can you imagine a river 9 miles wide? That's a big river. There have been many creatures seen in that South American region. We can talk more about that later. There's a famous lake called Loch Ness. How many has ever heard of Loch Ness before? There's a big map on
Dude,
the
the
table down here under
Amazon's
all the junk about the
terrifying.
Loch Ness. If it's a map from Scotland, if you want to read it. Loch Ness is about 24 miles long, a mile to a mile and a half wide, and up to 900 feet deep in places. Big lake. In 1933, they blasted with dynamite a groove into the side of the mountains to put a road along the edge of Loch Ness. Before that time, if you wanted to see the lake, you had to climb over the mountains because the road was on the wrong side of the mountains. Very sparsely populated up in that region of Scotland, northern Scotland. Well, in 1933, they put a roadbed in there, and then there began to be many sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. There were sightings before, but mostly local people, and the news didn't get out much, and if it did, people thought, well, they've been drinking too much, something up there in the hills of Scotland. Well, this author said there have been 9,000 reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. The first year they put the road in, there were 52 separate sightings. He said there have been 9,000 reported sightings. Today it's over 11,000. Many are certainly fakes and frauds, I understand, okay? But the fact that there's a few fakes and frauds does not discredit all 11,000. Sir Peter Scott said, I believe in the Loch Ness Monster. He's a member of Parliament. Said, I believe in it. Most of them say it's a plesiosaurus. Plesiosaur is this kind. There are about, I'm going to say 5 or maybe 6 different kinds of swimming dinosaurs that are similar to this. Plesiosaur, the elasmosaur, a couple other unusual ones. Well, this author said, there's one thing wrong with Nessie being a plesiosaur. Plesiosaurs became extinct 70 million years ago. Oh, is that what's wrong with the theory? Yeah, we better throw out all the evidence then, since it doesn't match your theory. When you get 11,000 people who claim they've seen something, maybe they've seen something. Arthur Grant was a veterinarian student. He nearly ran into Nessie on his motorcycle. Here's what he said.
Yeah, it's like, if there's 11,000 sightings, sure, some of those are going to be fake. Some of the ones that sold their story to the Enquirer or whatever. But when you have, like, doctors, politicians, just such a wide variety, where they don't gain anything by lying. They're not getting any money. They're not, there's nothing to gain. There's no prosper. There's no advancement in themselves to lie. There's no reason to lie. Like, out of those 11,000 people, you got to figure some of them are saying, hey, I saw something out there, and you got to, it's true. What that is, we don't know, but if they're all describing the same thing.
He said, I had a splendid view of the object. In fact, I almost struck it with my motorcycle. It had a long neck, oval-shaped eyes, on top of a small head. The tail would be 5 to 6 feet long and very powerful. He said, the total length of the animal, 15 to 20 feet. Knowing something of natural history, I can say I've never seen anything in my life like the animal I saw. It looked like a hybrid. That's what he wrote about. He drew that sketch right there, after nearly hitting it with his motorcycle. Alexander Campbell was the game warden for Loch Ness for 47 years. He said, I saw Nessie 18 times. He said, it looked like that. He said the closest he ever saw it was 3 feet away. He was out in his boat sitting there, motor not running, been sitting there for hours. All of a sudden, Nessie popped its head up beside his boat. Scared both of them half to death. Nessie took off, and he took off. People have tried to catch it with cages. They've tried everything you can imagine and some things you can't imagine, trying to catch Nessie out there. This is a gigantic lake. Loch Ness is big enough that everybody in the world could go drowned in it at the same time. That lake would hold 6 billion bodies. It's a big lake. Many folks claim they've seen Nessie. One family said they saw it with a sheep in its mouth, headed back for the water. This guy got a picture of it with its back sticking out of the water. Here's the neck over here. When they republished this picture in Reader's Digest, I've got it on the table down here somewhere, they cropped the head off. Reader's Digest, shortened version. All they show is the hump on the back. McLeod said he watched it for 9 minutes through binoculars. He drew 4 sketches of what he saw. He said it was halfway out of the water on shore on the other side, you know, a mile away, pretty far. But he said it put a big flipper up on shore and pushed off and rolled back into the water. After watching it for 9 minutes, he said the head was moving back and forth in the brush like a snake. He said, I think it looks like that. That's his sketch of Loch Ness Monster. Several folks have reported like horns or tubes on top of the head, maybe breathing tubes or maybe horns. Maybe there's a male and female that, you know, one's different than the other. I don't know. World Book Encyclopedia put a submarine over there, spent a fortune bringing a submarine from Georgia or South Carolina, took it over there, put it in the water. The guy went down in the sub and said, raise him. It's wrinkled up and there are many places to hide.
What just happened?
And I'm sure Nessie heard 24 boats coming down the lake. You know, sound travels really good underwater. There could be caves off the side of Loch Ness going up into the mountainous regions right on the side. It's kind of what they call karst topography, very porous ground over there. Nessie may have wintering grounds up inside a cave someplace where there'd be an air chamber, an airlock. I don't know, just one theory about that. The Academy of Applied Science went over there, and so they got a picture underwater of its flipper, which is a good trick now. The water is muddy, but they set up sonar-activated cameras. They said Nessie swam past, took pictures of all kinds of fish, and finally got this giant flipper picture. Nessie has, apparently, 4 big diamond-shaped flippers. Here's the picture in Reader's Digest showing Nessie with its mouth open. Many folks have gotten pictures. They claim this picture is a fake, and it very well could be a fake. I don't know. But I think it's awfully interesting. They waited till the last guy who was involved died, and then announced it's a fake. They claim that he said it was a fake on his deathbed, but he's dead now, so how are we going to ask him? A little fishy there, but anyway, I'll accept it. Let's assume it's a fake, maybe. But there are 7 other lakes in Scotland reporting creatures like this. Loch Lochy, Loch Morag. All you got to do is go to the library. If it's on the Dewey system, go to 001.9, and there'll be books about Loch Ness Monster. On the Library of Congress system, go to QL89, and there'll be books about Loch Ness Monster. I've read every one I can find.
It'd be cool to
in
go
many,
there.
many libraries. There are lots of books on this topic. I was in Wales a few months ago. Just south of Wales, there's a bay called Cornwallis, the Cornish Sea. Many folks reported seeing the Cornish sea serpent down there. In the English Channel, there have been many reports of a creature like Loch Ness Monster in the English Channel. In 1766, we believe the dictionary we have, the cover page is torn off, so we're not sure, but we think it's a 1766 dictionary. They listed sea dragon as a marine monster caught in England in 1749, resembling in some degree an alligator, but having 2 large fins which served for swimming or flying. It had 2 legs terminating in hoofs like those of an ass. The body is covered with impenetrable scales. It had 5 rows of teeth. Interesting. This thing washed up on the beach in Normandy, France, where D-Day took place. This happened way before that, though. 1934, the creature washed up on the beach. Professors came and looked at it. They said it's not a whale. It's not a sea cow. It is possible we're in the presence of an unknown species. Time magazine, 1934. 2 scientists were on board a ship down near Brazil when this thing swam past their boat. They observed it from the yacht. They said it had a dorsal fin 6 feet long, 2 feet high, small head on a long neck about 7 or 8 feet long in front of the fin. 2 experienced naturalists saw it and reported the sighting. What they claimed was something unknown to science. This guy said, I saw, swimming parallel to the ship underwater, a curious creature about 4 feet long with a long neck and large flippers. I believe, as did my wife, who also saw it was a young plesiosaurus. A Queensland correspondent wrote me that a young plesiosaur was taken in a net off Mudgee Beach, Australia. He sent me a sketch which was like the one I myself saw off the coast of Greece. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said that. Interesting. Down near the coast of New Zealand, a Japanese fishing boat pulled this thing up out of their water one time, 1977. It was 4,000 pounds, 32 feet long. They said, what is that? They took a bunch of pictures. The sailors on board thought it was something really unusual. Took all kinds of photos of it, took some skin samples, and threw it back. It stunk real bad. The marine biologist on board made that sketch of the bones. They made a special stamp for Japanese mail in 1977. There's one on the yellow poster in front of the table here.
Dragon.
You want to see the stamp they made? And some folks today claim it was a basking shark. It certainly could be, I don't know, but they don't know either. The scientists who had it in their hands said, we think it's a plesiosaurus. Now, it's true, they analyzed the protein. It was 96% similar to shark protein. Okay, that doesn't mean it's sharks. It could be. Nobody's ever seen plesiosaur protein to know what it's supposed to look like. And I don't know if it's a shark or not. I just say it's interesting. They caught this thing and they claimed it was a plesiosaurus. They say it's got the protein elastidin. Well, a lot of animals have elastidin in it. 96% similar to shark protein, so what? Humans and apes are very similar in their protein structure, but are very different creatures. Nobody's ever seen plesiosaur protein. The fishermen had it and said, we know what basking sharks are, and they didn't think it was a basking shark. So the story still rages, and there are some creationist organizations that don't like me because I even mentioned the fact that they might have had a plesiosaur. I just am bringing it up for study purposes, okay? Some Russian scientists claim they saw a dinosaur in a lake in Russia. In 1994, a 39-foot carcass washed up on the beach in Russia, and everybody said it was a dinosaur. In Japan, up on the North Island of Japan, there have been reports of a creature like a dinosaur in a lake there. There's also one on the South Island of Japan. The people there call it Ishi. In China, there have been reported sightings of a creature similar to a dinosaur. They call it a USO, unidentified swimming object. What would you call it? There are several lakes in Norway and Sweden reporting creatures like this. There are many legends from ancient Swedish and Norwegian artwork showing what appear to be dinosaurs. Canada has many lakes reporting creatures that are called Canadian lake monsters. Nessie's Canadian cousin is an article here in the paper from the town of Kelowna, British Columbia, north of Washington.
Yeah,
There's a giant lake there. The lake is 80 miles long. The people there call it the Ogopogo. Now, what is the Ogopogo? Well, the Indians warned the white settlers when they came out there, said, oh, be careful about the Ogopogo. He will tip your canoe over and kill you. This article says right here, they were the latest among thousands to see something strange in this narrow 80-mile-long lake in southern British Columbia. One swimmer was swimming out there in the lake, and he said this creature came up under him. He said it was 20 to 30 feet long. He said, we've never seen a sturgeon in the lake. Some people thought it might be a big sturgeon. He said, nobody's ever seen a sturgeon in that lake. Creature showed up on sonar scan here from the Kelowna newspaper, Daily Courier, in the year 2000. There's another creature called Cadborosaurus, which apparently is on the Pacific coast along from British Columbia down as far as Oregon.
All right, let's stop right there. All right, so it looks like that section of the video, we just got some interesting theories of supposed dinosaur sightings. Whether or not they're still alive today, I don't know. But like I say, that information that he's presenting is pretty reasonable. It's at least worth thinking about, you know. Like I say, all them people saying they saw the same thing, we're just going to clump them all together as liars. I don't believe that at all, especially people who have nothing to gain from it. People out in the middle of the jungle who have no idea about a dinosaur or dinosaur theory or any of that, and they describe what they see, and it matches a dinosaur. That makes sense. So I do apologize. I'm just, for some reason, I'm really tired here tonight. It's only 8 o'clock at night, so I don't know why I'm so tired, but not my usual animated self. But I do appreciate you watching with me. Dr. Kent Hovind is always good to watch. So like I say, we didn't get a whole lot of facts on this section, just a lot of good theory, a lot of good things to think about, a lot of interesting things. So with that said, we'll call it a night here. I love you guys, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time.